It's not about motivation. Winners need discipline. Wake up and win today. Discipline comes from within.
Boxing King Media in association with Boxraw. Part 2, Dom. We're just going to talk about the weekend's boxing. I want to start off with your former fighter, Liam Williams. For the first round knockout, lost to Hamzah Sheeraz at the weekend. There was a lot of talk in the build-up. People are saying, you know, Liam's shot, etc. But I spoke to him after the fight off camera, and he basically said he felt fit. He had plenty of sparring with some good names, Ben Whittaker, Shakan Peters, and he said that was the best he felt. And he gave all the credit to Hamzah, and he said, you know, people are saying I'm shot, I'm not shot. So what did you make of it? Obviously, you worked with Liam closely, you know, the way the fight ended. Did you expect that to happen?
Well, I mean, when is a fighter ever going to turn around and say they're shot? I don't think Liam Williams is actually shot. But they do say, don't they, the fighter is the last to know. Let's just look at Liam Williams. He boxed Andrade. The next fight was Eubank. He went off and did his own thing. A similar thing happened in that fight. He got dropped a few times. Fought his way back into it very, very well, I thought. And I think if he'd have taken the knockdowns away from the Eubank fight, Liam would have probably actually, you know, won the fight. And then he had 2 knockover jobs, what I just call tick-over fights. And then he boxed Hamzah Sheeraz. And I don't think, I've just said, I don't think Liam Williams is shot. But as with most fighters, when you see something like that happening, it's not really to do with how great a camp they've had. It's to do with making weight. Because if you're not hydrated properly, you haven't made the weight cut properly, the slightest tap, you're going to go over. And that's what it looked like to me. I mean, he's not really had massively hard fights, Liam, through his career. And even the sparring sessions, at least when he trained here, he was quite smart. He never really took any damage. But it's what fighters do outside of training, how they live their lives, what has the most effect on the careers. The example of talking about Tyson Fury when he boxed in Ghana, he'd been out for 9 months, whatever. And a 12-week training camp isn't going to sort that out. You know, same with Liam. He's obviously had a long time to train for this, but a level of he's a top-level fighter, or has been a top-level fighter. It would seem a rapid decline from Andrade to where he is now in the period of time it's been. A rapid decline. He's not punchy. I don't think he's sharp, but something's obviously not right, you know, for him to go down that easy. And Hamzah Sheeraz, yeah, he's a good fighter, but you've only got to look what Bradley Skeet did with him. He boxed his head off. So I'm not quite buying it that he's the next Thomas Hearns. He's nowhere near the next Thomas Hearns. He didn't get the Liam Williams of the Mark Efron days, or the 3 years he spent with me, Atlantis Fox. That Liam Williams would have bashed Hamzah Sheeraz. He just would have done. So, you know, that's where the situation is there. And I think Liam's not an old kid. He's still relatively young. But it is kind of a career-ending performance in a way, because it's just a bit worrying that you saw a very similar thing happening in the Eubank fight. He got up 3 or 4 times, but in this fight, I think went down twice in the first round, was it?
Yep.
And Gary Lockett's the trainer. Now, if I've seen a fighter going down twice like that, and I have had fighters who've done that, one being Chris Saunders against Kevin Lucian a few years back. If you're the trainer, you know what's gone on off in the camp. You know how well your fighters trained and prepared to ride over through the storms, them kind of rounds. So if your fighter's done the job properly and you've been watching them, and you think, yeah, well, all right, he's got caught, but I know he's done a great camp, he's had some great sparring. They just flash knockdown, he just needs to warm up again. Then you'd look at that round and think, Liam, get moving, keep away, survive the round. You're going to come back fresh in the second one, you're going to readjust and carry on. But Gary Lockett was up straight away with a towel to stop the fight before he got finished. So
Gary has done that previously with other fighters as well.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he hasn't. And you know, the other thing with Gary, and he is a good trainer.
He's very protective.
Good fighter as well. Obviously, with the fighter who we talked about earlier, who got the brain damage, he was in the corner when that happened. What do you call him again?
Nick Blackwell.
Nick Blackwell. And, you know, you will be cautious, and why not? You should be, because no fight is worth anybody's health. But you know, it was a big fight for Liam. And if you know your trainer can do the work, you know what I mean, and you think, well, they just got caught, you'd be instructing your fighter, get moving, get out of the way, don't engage, get through the round, you'll recover, and then engage the next round, box your way back into it. Look what Liam Williams did when he boxed Eubank. He did get put down a few times, but he came back in and he was pushing all the way, pushing all the way, pushing all the way. So you'd expect if he had done the training and done everything he was supposed to have done, that he would have survived through that round and pushed on through the fight. So nobody knows, you know, what's gone on. But he's just a bit, you know, a bit concerning.
Obviously, we get this a lot when, you know, fighters get an emphatic win like that, and there's always the other side to it. Was that person shot? Is he really that good? But do you think it's fair on Hamzah Sheeraz? Because obviously one of the key points people have realised is that he has improved as a fighter from the kid that fought Bradley Skeet. He does look like he's had more time with Ricky Funes, and I think the style he told him that they actually work on is Oscar De La Hoya, so it's actually nothing like Tommy Hearns. The Tommy Hearns thing comes from the fact that he's just got tall limbs, etc., and obviously he's been labelled that, but as you've said, he fights nothing like Tommy Hearns. And you know, Spencer Fearon said to me he shapes up like Oscar De La Hoya, and I mentioned that to him in an interview, and he basically said that Ricky Funes, his favourite fighter, was Oscar De La Hoya, and that's what they kind of model his style on. So
it's a bit strange, isn't it, modelling your style on any other fighter? You're modelling your style on what you're good at doing.
I think just the stance, I think he said.
Yeah, but not really, because not really. I didn't look at him and think, oh, he looks like Oscar the Layer. Yeah. I didn't think he looks like Thomas Hearns. He just looks like what he is.
But for him to, you know, Chris Eubank Jr. dropped Liam, I think 4 or 5 times. He wasn't able to close the show. And like you said there, Liam got back into the fight and won a lot of the rounds. But Hamzah was able to stop him. What was the difference?
Well, you've got to remember that, first of all, Eubanks is older than Sheeraz. Sheeraz has been stopping kids. If you stand in front of him, he can bang. It's just whether he's got the... As with Bradley Skeet, yeah, he can bang if you're in front of him, but trying to close down a tricky fighter and bang him's a different story. So if they stood in front of you, yeah, well, yeah, he can dig. But getting into position to throw them knockout shots is you know... is where it's at and what you need to do. So, and that was 2 years ago, with roughly nearly 2 years to the date since Liam got beat by Chris Eubank. And in that period of time, I think he's had 2 fights. So he's been very inactive. He hasn't had high-level opposition. What's he been doing in them 2 years, Liam? Has he been training every week? Has he been living as a consummate pro? Probably not, because there's no motivation or incentive to do that. I've trained Liam. Liam is a machine. You know, I really enjoyed training Liam. Could fight, could punch, didn't mind having a scrap. You know, it was like holding him back on a leash. He was an animal. That's why they called him the machine. I did like, you know, training him. But very incentive led. He's got to have something in front of him. He needs to be fighting. He needs to be fighting regular. He needs to be getting in there and doing it. And if there's not, he'll find something else to do. So you have to ask yourself the question, what has he been doing in the 2 years since he boxed Eubank? When he's fighting low-level fighters who aren't going to cause him a problem, has he been training to the level he should be? Has he been living his life to the level he should be? Has he been thinking, I've got another big fight coming up? There's a lot of factors going into it, where Sheeraz is younger, he's on the rise, and he's been around for he's had quite a few fights, and he's not really, you know, hit the heights just yet. What is he, 26?
I think he's younger. I think he's 24.
24 then. So he's been around a long time. But the thing with Frank...
Well, he told me something interesting.
Yeah.
He said when Liam Williams fought Mark Heffron, he was a kid sat up in the tears.
Well, there you go then. So how interesting is that? And that's only 2017, 18, whatever it is. So, you know, the thing about Frank is he builds the fighters. He builds the fighters. He gets the opposition at the right time. So... I'm not going to say I'm a big fan of Hamzah's, or I'm not a big fan.
Do you think he's got potential to become a star? Because obviously I spoke to him after the fight, and because I was looking at the fans' feedback, he's been received really, really well. He speaks very eloquently for a young man, and comes across as a nice.
I think the Bradley Skeet fight gave him the realization that you've got to have a bit more than power. You come against a good fighter who can think and box, you're going to struggle. So you've got to develop that part of your game. In time, he will develop into a better fighter and probably be able to go in for bigger fights if he listens and adjusts. And Frank's giving him the names and building him up, because that's what Frank does. He builds you and builds you and builds you to the point where the only other option is to put you in a big fight, and then you've got to be adapted and ready to do it. So as long as he's training properly, he's listening, he's making the weight properly. I think when he boxed, I think he moved up to middleweight from light middleweight. I think that was a big issue. He was a big guy. I mean, he looked massive compared to Liam. So that will have helped a lot. And possibly he might even go to super middle, looking at the size of him.
I think his team reckon he'll make light heavyweight one day.
Well, maybe. But at 24, you would think he's gone from light middle to super middle. And what a great division that'd be, because that'd be a good fight with Ben Whittaker.
Definitely so.
And that fight, let's say that fight does happen. I mean,
I think Ben's a light heavyweight.
Yeah, all right. Well, we're talking about going up to light heavyweight, whatever we are. But the thing with Sheeraz, Frank will find him the fight and give him the chance, and it'll be a very winnable big fight as well if he's doing everything right. So if he's doing everything right in his camps and he's paying attention and learning and being the consummate pro, he'll go places because he can bang, and power will always get you out of trouble.
Definitely so. And I'm interested to see where his journey takes him. I just want to ask you about the. You seen? I don't know if you know or not, but purse bids came out this week for Adam Azim to fight Dalton Smith. Dalton's got the British and Commonwealth super lightweight titles. Adam Azim's got the European belt. Adam, I think, is 11-0, and I think Dalton's obviously had a lot more fights, and he's about 5 years older as well. There's conflicting opinions. Some people are saying the fight's too early. They should wait for it to be a world title fight. Some people are saying Dalton's got more experience. But what do you think? I know you just touched on there about building fighters and having the fights at the right time. Should they fight?
Well, I'll go back to Jazza Dickens against Kid Galahad when they boxed for the British title fight. I think they both had 15 or 16 wins, and realistically, people saying, this is like a bit of a crossroads fight or whatever. Whoever wins this is going to go on, whoever loses is going to be way back. And it did take Jazza Dickens a few years to get back on track after that fight, because realistically, if that had been a Frank Warren, I mean, it was Mick Hennessy that, but if it had been a Frank Warren fighter or an Eddie Hearn, they would have probably missed that fight and moved on a different route and then met further down the line. And that happened with Johnny Nelson against Cole Thompson. Johnny Nelson and Cole Thompson years ago.
You keep trying to zip up your jacket, don't you? Because it's like...
Yeah, it's annoying me.
Because it's freezing.
It's annoying me. But
if the viewers knew how cold it was in here right now, it's absolutely freezing.
I think it shouldn't be, should it? But yeah, Johnny Nelson was down to box Cole Thompson for the Central Area title years ago. And I think the purse was 1,500 quid each. And Cole Thompson's manager, a fellow called Nat Basso, said they can't fight for that amount. It's derogatory amount of money. So they never did. And it's a good job they didn't, because obviously years later they boxed in a world title fight for a lot more money, and it was the right decision at the time. So getting back to Dalton and the other guy, Adam Azim, that Dalton's a bit older, he's got a lot more fights, a good boxer, not a massive punch, he's got bad hands, he gets, I think, cut quite easily. So Adam Azim can bang, been knocking everybody out. He's younger, he takes more risks. It's one of those type of fights. It's like, it could be too soon. But, sometimes in the favour of the champion, it's better to get those fighters early, like Adam Azim, before they develop into having more experience. So...
I'll make it easier for you. If you was advising Adam Azim, what would you say?
I'd say, I haven't watched a lot of
Because it
Adam
appears
Azim.
like the ball's in their court. Dalton's team and Eddie's obviously come out and said they want the fight.
Well, Adam Azim is with Sky.
Yeah.
And obviously Dalton's with Eddie. And what I would say is that common opponents...
Have they got any common opponents? Top of my head, I don't think they have.
Right. So what I would, before I'd have made that decision for Adam Azim to box Dalton, I would have at least, and this is another thing what Frank Warren would have done, is get a common opponent and see and gauge, maybe 2 common opponents. Instead of going on being so stoked by your fighter banging everybody out, Adam Azim, he's just got to hit this kid and it's all over, or he's got the power. Well, it's not always about power. So what I would say is that before I'd have took that fight...
Yeah, just had a quick call there, Dom. So just picking up, in short, if you was advising Adam Azim, would you take the Dalton Smith fight?
I think I'd wait a bit longer, get some common opponents, and make sure it was 100% nailed on that I was going to beat him. Because, you know, Dalton Smith's a good fighter. He's been around a few years, got a lot of experience. And, you know, Adam Azim's a kid coming through. And you can't make mistakes at the British title level. If you don't win the British title really on the first time of asking when you're a young fighter, it's going to be difficult all the way through your career. You should really, if you're good enough, should be breezing through the British title fights. Realistically, Dalton he's defended a few times. He should actually be moving up the ladder. And I see he's got a good fight coming up next against the
Zepeda.
Yeah, and that fight with you know, those knockdowns in. Greg mentioned it to me this morning, and he goes, "Oh, he's fighting this kid." I go, "That'll be an interesting fight." I said, "That kid can punch, but he's also got no chin." So they must have got the inside information on him that he's ready for the taking. So it'd be an interesting fight. That'll tell us a lot about Dalton.
Definitely so.
Welcome back. It's date night for the cult leader, but it appears the nerves have got to him before the unlucky lady arrives. Tyan appears to be very close to bottling his first date in years as he stands outside the local off-license drinking some cheap beer and sharing a cigarette with a random strange woman.
See you later, yeah? Yeah, thanks. Yo, do you want this?
Whatever it was he shared with the random woman, it's worked. Dressed in his brand new £25 outfit, Tyan heads into the Taka restaurant as he awaits the arrival of his date. Meet 26-year-old influencer boxer and OnlyFans model Alexia Grace, who has come all the way from Birmingham in hope of meeting her Prince Charming. The unlucky lady has no idea what is in store for her. Hang on a minute. Is that Tyan outside the restaurant looking to escape? What the fuck is he doing with that random woman again?
I just want to also touch on just couple of more subjects. This whole thing with John Fury and Carl Froch. We've seen, you know, Carl and John had a lot of back and forth online. Obviously, John's had a bit of stick from it, etc. But do you think it's fair that all that stick John's getting, considering, you know, what he's done? Because at the end of the day, he's brought a lot of eyes to boxing. That if you look at the views online in the build-up to the fights, he's bringing a lot of eyes, and them eyes, I'm pretty sure, transpire to pay-per-view buys.
Yeah, look, John's making a name for himself, and you know, really, he should probably take the Carl Froch attitude. Is really, I don't really care what anybody else thinks about me, because you are what you are. Once you start caring what people think about you, you kind of lose your essence, don't you? I mean, Cole's box, great champion, box everybody, brutal when he used to fight, crash bang wallop. You know, the only time he was kind of humbled in a way was against Andre Ward. You know, but after that, the fights he had were tremendous. And I think, you know, John getting a bit wound up about what people think of him, you're never going to get people, you know, seeing your way, or everybody's on your side. It's, if you're going to put yourself in the limelight, you know, whether that's Cole, you know, Tyson, John, you're gonna have to be prepared to get shot down, and just take it with a pinch of salt. You know, John's 50 odd years old, Cole's 30 odd. It's like, me personally, I won't really entertain talking about beating older people up. It's like whether you can or you can't or whatever. It's like, really, Cole should just laugh it off and just leave it. John's John, innit?
Can I ask you about this? Because I know you've got history with John, and I know you've known him for years. Like, you know, for him and Peter used to come to this gym when you were all like young lads. There's obviously like a lot of people talk about how many fights John's had and what was he like as a fighter. I'm guessing nobody probably knows that better than you, because you obviously were around him. So do you want to give us a bit of an insight into John?
John, just look, back in those days, you know, John had a manager called Tommy Miller. Tommy Miller managed my dad. He managed loads of fighters. And, you know, money was important back in them days. Getting a good way to earn money was to be a boxer. And especially if you're just going against any Tom, Dick and Harry, you get paid well. You could be earning a month's wages in a night. And you got kids to feed and you're grafting, then like it's a welcome bonus. So, you know, you look at John's record, and one thing he did, he went in with anybody. He didn't care who they were. Henry Akawande, few big names. Yeah, he might have got banged out or he might have got beat. But some kids wouldn't even entertain getting in those type of fights. Do you understand? So being around in the modern day times, my dad always used to say about John Fury, if he could actually discipline himself and actually trained, he could have been a good fighter. But he just kind of turned up and just had a fight for the sake of it. That was his attitude. So I can always saying, if he trained, he'd be something different, this fella. But that's how they are back in them days. He just turned up and had a fight. You box every week, get a few quid, get in what you're doing. And like John's coming into his own now as Tyson's dad, and he's doing well on social media. And I see people challenging him, Big Joe Egan, a sparring partner to Mike Tyson, all-time Irish champion. And like, they're 50-odd years old. Why are they talking about fighting each other? It's a young man's game. That's where it is. Nobody's wanting to see, two 57-year-old blokes fighting each other. It'd be like watching two grannies eat each other with handbags. What's the point? It's like, they're not at the peak. I mean, it was hard enough to watch Tyson against Roy Jones. You know what I mean? It's like, when you look at them in the prime, how they boxed and how devastating they were, and then they do an exhibition where, you know what I mean? It's like, what's that all about?
But one of the things you mentioned, I want to touch on it. You said that John used to rock up and fight anyone without asking who it is, with little preparation. Does that kind of disprove a lot of this theory? Like, John will say it, but he'll not back it up. Because surely if you're one of these that's not going to pick and choose your fight, you're not going to be that type of character.
You didn't have them options in them days. You just did it. Like boxing, you didn't know, you didn't have the information. There were no there were no boxing records. It's just what your matchmaker told you, or your man, you'll be all right with this kid. Do you know what I mean? You see, going back when we were talking about Paul Sykes the other week, Paul Sykes was also managed by Tommy Miller. You know what I mean? He managed a lot of fighters from around this area, big guys. So we didn't have the inside information. You went on what your manager said. So you got stung in with everybody and turn up. And regardless of that, you got to think about John's record on the street fighting people. You know what I mean? Back on the streets is like the street fights he's had and the bother he's got himself into. We don't need to talk about it, but he will have a fight. He will have a fight. And that's the thing, is there's no question there about him picking and choosing. He's probably had more fights on the streets than he ever has in a boxing ring. Fighting's fighting to them. And when they say they are fighting men, his generation, they are fighting men, that's it.
And I'm guessing you probably would know that firsthand from back in the day. Like, you don't have to tell me
stories. Do you know what? He's only a few years older than me, but it seems like he's a lot older than me because of the stories that he used to hear. You get off my dad and the people around him and his managers and the trainers, and they were colourful characters. They weren't, fighting was fighting, whether it was in a ring, on the street, where car parks, fields. So the reality is John Fury is a fighting man, but there was no box record, there was no mobile phones about then. And they weren't, look, they didn't get Cole Froch came from a different era. Cole Froch could fight. They got built up steadily. They got, they went through the amateur system. They got guided, they got tricked. I mean, especially Carl, I had a great training with Robert McCracken all the way through amateurs, got guided, great career. You didn't have that back in those days. You didn't have it. Most of the fighters, the GB setup and the amateur setup wasn't like it was today. You had to be, really top level. So the fighters like John Fury just had to go out and box on club shows, box everywhere, fight in the street, did what you did. They didn't get really brought through, so it's two different types of fighters. So, but the other thing is, John just probably didn't have the discipline. He's a traveller, he's working, grafting, doing what he's doing. Fighting just came as part as everything else. So, really, I don't know. I ain't watched too much of what's going on with Cole and with John, and obviously Cole's doing his stuff. But realistically, if you're being respectful and being respectful about yourself, if I was a world champion and I was Cole Froch and everything I'd done, I wouldn't even be talking about John Fury or fighting John Fury or slagging. It wouldn't even be on my radar, because you're bringing yourself down, really, talking about fighting some fellow who's 20 odd years older than you. You should be talking about other fights. You should be talking, about other people. You could understand Cole calling Joe Calzaghe out, because who's winning that fight. That might be a great exhibition fight on a Misfits, if that's what you're going to do. But realistically, I don't think Cole should be calling out, old fellas like John Fury, because it's a different kettle of fish.
What I will say is a touch on it just quickly on there is, we see again John's a loud character on camera, but I'll be honest, most boxing fans who have probably met John and most people in the media who have interviewed John, again, what you see when you press record is two different people. He's probably one of the most humble, nicest people I've met in boxing. Straight up guy, and
he's a respectful person. But look, you've only got to look at we've got John Fury, who kind of, you could say, he's the sounding board for Tyson, doing all the shouting and bawling and hitting screens and punching screens. Well, Cole's brother used to do that. You know what I mean? Cole's brother used to be the one who used to be kicking off and showing off at shows, and Cole's going to do this. That's a fight. His brother was a character, and they're Lee. And Lee were having unlicensed fights, and Lee were calling people out, and Lee would... It's no different.
It's show business.
It's just show business. Everybody's got somebody around them like that. Cole was the fighter, and then there are other people. His brother Lee, Tyson's the fighter. Well, John used to box. He's the shot. You don't really see much of it. You know, you've got Shane. And I remember one time Shane coming down here, and Tyson was sparring somebody, and Shane just got in, and he did a round. No gum shield, no head guard. Just got in and did a round.
Love it.
Oh, you know what I mean? So when you're talking about fighting men, no gum shield, just got in.
The Furies don't mess about. Last thing, Dom, just a quick answer on this. I saw KELL BROOK just leave the gym this morning. It's all still rumours. You know, is there any update on this whole KELL BROOK situation? If it's happening, if it's not, is KELL coming back, etc.? Where do you stand with it?
He's been training. He's been in the gym last 4 weeks, ticking over, feeling around, doing his training, doing the pads, doing a bit of sparring. You were just coming in this morning when he left Monday, so he'll get another week in. I don't know. Like I said to him, come to me when there's something solid. At the minute, you know, if you think you're going to be fighting, just keep ticking over. I don't even get involved in what's going on or what they're talking about. I know they're talking about Eubank, and then they're talking about Eddie's making offers to Eubank for Ben. You know, it's like it's all smoke and mirrors and talk in it. And like I said, where Kell's at, 37. I think he's 37 this year or whatever he is. He's got or 38 even. He's ticking over. You know, whether anything comes from it, I don't know. But it's, you know, for me, come in and train, KELL. Keep yourself sane. Keep yourself mentally balanced. Keep yourself physically fit. If that's what you want to do when there's a fight, well, give yourself a good 16 to 20 weeks to sharpen yourself up. If it's not going to be 16 to 20 weeks, don't even bother thinking about having a fight at short notice, 8, 10 weeks, or when somebody decides, you know, well, we'll give him 10 weeks to prepare. He's not 10 weeks away from a fight. He's 16 to 20 weeks away from a fight. So, you know, just putting it out there that unless you're getting, KELL BROOK's getting 16 to 20 weeks of proper training, it's not a prepared fight.
Good stuff. Well, appreciate your time, Dom. And again, the fans that enjoy these interviews, keep an eye out. We've got something big launching soon. It will be a podcast with Boxing King Media and Dominic Ingle, brought to you very soon. This interview was powered by IPMB.
Listen, I got a question for you. Where can discipline take you? Discipline points you toward your goals.